Halloween is just around the corner. This video is actually probably going to go up on Halloween. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 games that help get me into the Halloween spirit, including one that I've actually never talked about before on this channel. My name is James, and if you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. So growing up, in our house, we didn't really celebrate Halloween a whole lot, but I've always really enjoyed the fall, and I've always liked this time of year. I always enjoyed the movies and stuff that would play this time of year, especially on like Disney Channel and other places where there were certain movies that you could pretty much only see this time of year, and I really enjoyed that. And so for me, Halloween has always been less about like zombies and vampires and all that stuff, but more about like mystery and investigations, and so that's kind of the way that I'm going to take this video. But rest assured, all of these games on this list somehow tie into Halloween, at least either for me on a personal level or on a more literal level, like we'll get into in a second. But yeah, I guess without saying much else, let's get started. The first game that came to mind for me was Batman Arkham Knight. And this game's not particularly scary, which is going to be a recurring theme throughout this list. I wouldn't say any of these games are really scary. That's not really my vibe. But I've always kind of actually associated the character of Batman with Halloween. And part of that comes from, as I said earlier, when we were kids, we didn't celebrate Halloween at home. We were, however, allowed to receive free candy and dress up as superheroes or whatever. And for me, the superhero of choice was always the Caped Crusader himself. Maybe not always. Maybe like most of the time. Anyway, so that, combined with the fact that this game literally takes place on Halloween, makes it a pretty obvious pick for me for a first choice of Halloween game. Up next is Metroid Prime 2. And this one, I want to say I actually talked about this one also in my video last week, where I talked about different GameCube games that I'd like to see end up on Nintendo Switch Online. The reason this game ended up on the list for me was because the beginning chunk of the game, where you are kind of figuring out how stuff works as Samus, and you first land down on Aether, and you're kind of looking around and trying to figure out what happened to the GFMC troopers that landed there before you, and you're like watching their like you're basically like watching their like body cam footage and watching them get like kind of like ripped apart. It has some like really like horror elements to it that as a kid I found those to be very fascinating. And I think the game kind of lays off of some of those horror elements later on in the game, which I think kind of weakens the experience for me. But Metroid Prime 2 as a whole, and really the entire Metroid series, has always been almost like Nintendo's take on horror. And I also feel like this is an appropriate game to include here because Metroid Prime 4 is just about a month away. Coming up next is Doom 3. This game almost actually didn't make this list because of how different it is from the other Doom games. However, what makes it so different is that it is much more story-driven, and it does have much more of like a horror vibe to it. A lot of the game is very dark, and enemies are pretty often coming up behind you, and there are jump scares and lots of crazy stuff going on in Doom 3. So I thought this would be an appropriate place to kind of bring it up. I just got cut off recording because my computer said that I needed to free up space. I think I was done talking about Doom 3, so I'm just going to move on now to the next game that I want to talk about, which is Scars Above. This is not the best game in the world. However, I do think it has a similar like creepy atmosphere to the games that I've been talking about so far. And from the trailer of this game, it does look like it's kind of supposed to be a kind of like sci-fi horror game. It doesn't quite play like that. It's really just like a pretty average third-person shooter. But I guess actually pretty similar to Metroid Prime 2. When the game starts out, you are crash landing on this planet and kind of waking up, and so you do spend a good chunk of the game kind of figuring out what happened before you, what happened during the crash, why did you crash, and all of this other stuff. So it does have a certain like mystery element to it that I enjoy as well. And before I give my top pick, I do want to go ahead and give some honorable mentions. These ones are games that I just decided that I didn't necessarily want to talk about for one reason or another, but they are Alan Wake, Until Dawn, Halo, Hogwarts Legacy, and Zombie U. And those games are varying in quality and spookiness. And the final game that I want to talk about today is Luigi's Mansion. And this felt like a reasonable one to put kind of at the top of this list for a couple of reasons. One, this game just landed in Nintendo Switch Online on October 30th. Another reason that this game ends up kind of at the top of the list for me is that this game is really a Nintendo-style horror game. This, I feel like, is really Nintendo's attempt of doing, like, horror for kids. And as somebody who would have been, like, 7 or 8 years old when this game came out, it really resonated with me, and I really like this game. And I think that's all that I have to say today. Guys, in the comment section, please let me know what games get you into the Halloween spirit. Until next time, the best way to keep up with me is right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching.